Hello, everyone. My name is Barry Anderson, and I'm with Trade Ideas. I really apologize for not being able to get this working so we could have a live question and answer session after the webinar. But this is basically the webinar that I was going to present, and so I think you'll get some benefit out of it anyway. Now, I am involved in training and support for Trade Ideas, but first and foremost, I am a day trader, and I use the program in order to create the strategies that help me to day trade. What I'm going to do today is show you a couple of the strategies that I am using right now. One is called the bouncers, and the other is called the custom crossing above resistance. And I'm also going to go over an add-on tool called the Oddsmaker, which allows me to actually use this second strategy. Now, before that, I should tell you, Mitch went over a little bit with you on, I guess it was on Monday afternoon, and he showed you a bunch of windows that he had open. I think he even mentioned that he probably had too many open and that you get a lot of noise when you have a lot of windows open. And that's exactly right. This is in essence my layout. All right. I don't have very many windows open. These are my two that I really concentrate on. I do have a couple other that I may use, bring in here from time to time, but I really try to keep it very simple because I learned the hard way that you can drive yourself nuts by trying to think of every single strategy out there and create little windows with all these little strategies in them. And so really the idea is to pick a couple of strategies that seem to work for you and concentrate on them and just kind of keep it simple. Now, what you do and so what you're seeing right here, in each one of these windows, it kind of tells a little story. And we'll go over each one, but I want to talk about the first one here. And Mitch talked about it a little bit, what I call the pre-market movers. And I did send him a link for it last week, and I know he was explaining it to you. And let me just show basically what I do. First of all, I use this because this is what's called a top list, all right? Now, had we been able to do the webinar when we were supposed to, you would have seen that this would have been frozen at 9:30 in the morning. And what I do is at 8 o'clock in the morning, I start looking at this window. And the filters that I have here are, yes, 20,000 minimum shares have to be traded in the pre-market, and the stocks have to be up or down by at least 3%. That's what is going to be of interest to me in the pre-market to see what stocks I might want to follow all day long. And so what happens is I will start watching this at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and what happens is that the window starts filling up with the stocks. I'm able then to click on each stock, and Trade Ideas allows you to link with many platforms, charting programs and brokerage platforms. So that's what I do. I will check to see what the support and resistance is for each one of those stocks, and then determine whether or not I really want to follow them for the rest of the day. Now, one very interesting column that I look at for sure is this column, which says the change from the close column, and this is just something that you can add many different columns within Trade Ideas, but this is one that is really helpful in the pre-market. And again, unfortunately, this is not going to mean a lot right now, but what this is telling me, and you have to imagine that we're in the pre-market now. The market hasn't opened. So, for instance, I did note like YOD, which was a huge runner today. When I noticed that this said 35, in other words, 35%, what that meant was that YOD had already traded 35% of what it normally trades for the whole day. It had already traded 35% of that volume in the pre-market. So I knew that something was really up with that stock. And actually, this is a stock that I had looked at Friday afternoon and thought it might have another run on Monday, and it certainly did. And so that's what I will do then. Not only once I have this list, I will quickly look to see how much the stock is actually traded in the pre-market based on what it would normally trade. And the other thing I look at is this what we call the earnings day column. And I can tell, without getting too into it, I can tell very quickly whether or not the stock is moving up or down because it's had earnings. And these numbers mean something to me. The point 5 means that the earnings are very close. 13 minus 13.5 basically means the earnings were 13 days ago, so it's probably not that relevant. If the column is empty, then it means the earnings are way in the future or they've way in the past, so it's really not relevant. So this stock then would be moving up for another reason other than earnings, some other news-related reason. So that's what I'm doing, though. I'm watching in the pre-market, and my goal is to find about 5 or 6 stocks that I think could be traded for the rest of the day. And I will take these 5 or 6 stocks and put them in little thumbnail charts and follow them. If nothing happens with them, that's fine. But I feel I've done my pre-market work. And the reason I use Trade Ideas to do this, as I said, this updates every 30 seconds. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go to other websites. I don't have to hit a refresh key or anything like this. It just updates every 30 seconds. And so literally at about 9:29, I have my complete pre-market list and I'm set to go. So I will put this one away right now. And then I just want to talk a little bit about how Trade Ideas arranges their windows or names their windows, shall we say. You see here, I've got a T there, which stands for a top list. T right here, top list, and an A here, which stands for alert windows. Here's another T for my spider sector list. So what that really means is that the top lists are essentially, it's going to monitor interesting situations. So, for instance, I might want to know at any one time what stocks are down the most in the last 60 minutes, what stocks are up the most in the last 60 minutes. And I will arrange it, I can sort it on what is down the most and of course what is up the most. That's how I've sorted this particular strategy. It's not a strategy, it's just sort of a way I just want to know what stock, and I can click on any one of these symbols, of course, and see if anything is interesting happening right then and there. A lot of people like to see what stocks are up the most, just never mind in the 60 minutes, but what stocks are up the most. In other words, the biggest gainers or the biggest losers. So this is what Trade Idea is what we call a top list. And again, very easy to construct. And another top list that I use is the spider sector list. This is something that I refer to all day long, and I have different indexes in here, of course. You can add whatever indexes you want or subtract whatever you want. But I like to take a look at this because if I'm getting into a trade and I know it's and I can very quickly check over here to see, is that index up for the day? Is it down for the day? Is it moving fast in the last 5 minutes, which was unfortunately because the market's closed. I can't show you this, but again, had we done this live, you would have seen a little bit more here. But so this gives me a nice little capsule, sort of a snapshot of what the market is actually doing. Now let me show you this one. I really enjoy watching this one because this is basic highs and lows. And again, unfortunately, you would have seen this window would have been full of stocks. And I know somebody asked a question about colors, and the colors are just any user preference. I mean, I happen to like a lot of times I like to see when stocks are down, I like to see yellow. When stocks are up, green. That's sort of obvious for the yellow for the green, but what you would see here is all day long, you would see stocks streaming in real time, and you would see when stocks are making new highs of the day or new lows of the day. And I love that because it gives me a very sort of an instant capsule of what the market is doing, a snapshot of what the market is doing right now. So for instance, if I'm going to one of my alerts, one of my strategy windows signals that I should be going long in something, I will take a quick look over here. And if I see a sea of yellow, in other words, there's lots of stocks making new lows for the day, it may just cause me pause and say, well, maybe I should wait just a little bit and see what is happening with that particular stock that I've been alerted to. If it starts going down, then of course I won't take it. But if it's holding its own and then starts to make a move up, then I might think, okay, this is the alpha stock and it's sort of trading. It doesn't care what the rest of the market is doing. But let's face it, it's nice to have the market on your side when you're trading. So That to me, this is a great gauge of what's happening right at the time that you might be wanting to take a trade. Now, the other thing I like to use this for, though, is that let's say, for instance, that I see a sea of yellow. So all sorts of stocks are making new lows for the day. But what if I see a little green stock? Again, you have to imagine this is streaming by constantly. And I see a green stock. So that stock somehow is bucking the trend. It's going against the flow of what is happening in the overall market. So of course, I would actually click on that particular stock and just to see what's happening. And if it's looking like it's coming from a good trading strategy or a good chart pattern, then I may in fact take the trade. But again, this is not, I mean, I obviously, all these stocks are streaming by very quickly, and I'm not clicking on every stock to see what's happening. It's not the purpose of it. But again, if I see the odd stock that looks like it's going against the grain, I certainly will. Now, let me just show you. Mitch went over briefly about how to create a strategy and how simple it is. And I'll use this one to demonstrate how you do that. This is not, I wouldn't call this a strategy so much, but I'm always intrigued by stocks that are close to a whole number. In other words, 72, 78, 91. As they're approaching the whole number, either from the upside or from the downside, um, I just want to see what's happening because that whole number can be kind of a psychological barrier. We see a lot of stocks bounce off a whole number, or if the stock goes through the whole number, then it may just keep continuing down. So I kind of like to see what's happening at that whole number. So let me just show you when I go to the configure file and I click on summary. This in English language is telling me what this strategy window is doing. All right, and so and this is just me. I want to see stocks between $20 and $100. Current volume is at least 2, and this is an important filter that we have. What the current volume means is this. Let's say a stock does at 11 o'clock in the morning over the last 30 days, the average that this stock has done is 500,000 shares by 11 o'clock. And but today it's only doing 250,000. So right now that stock is not trading abnormally, in my opinion. So I want to see stocks that in this particular window, and then you can set the filter for anything you want, but I want to see stocks that are doing double what they would normally be doing at this period of the day. So I'm seeing the abnormally traded stocks. So, and then I put the volume filter is 800,000. And that's again, that's just me. I just like to see stocks that have traded a fair amount of volume. And then this is the decimal filter, what we call the decimal filter. And this is the one that is going to basically only look at stocks that are, say, 22.97 to 23.03. So in other words, 3 cents either below the whole number or 3 cents above the whole number. Now I can, if I'm not getting very many, then I could expand that. I could just do something like this. Let me just click on it, and you see it comes up here, and I could just make the change. I could just change that to 95 and 105. So now all of a sudden it's now a nickel on either side. Okay, but I just happen to like it tighter. But again, if I'm not getting very many, then I just expand the range just a little bit. So I'm going to exit out of that. And so that's how that is this particular strategy. And let me just go back how it's triggered, because every strategy that you have has to have some kind of a trigger. And so here my trigger is going to be every time a new high is made or a new low is made, as long as all these filters are met. So you can imagine then if the filters are met and a new low is made and the stock is going down and it's approaching it, and it's probably approaching it from the top of the whole number. So now it's say at 80.03. I want to see what's going to happen at that whole number. Is it going to bounce, or is it going to keep going below it? And conversely, if it's a new high, it could be now at 79.97 and it's approaching that 80. Is it going to go through it, or is it going to be rejected by it and bounce back? So it's not a strategy in that I'm going to actually go and necessarily buy or short based on the actual alert I get, but it's the sort of thing that definitely has interest for me. Now, let me just show you how easy it is to build a strategy. And Mitch went over one, and let's just build this whole number from scratch. So as he did, he went new alert window. And what happens is I've got these defaults in place already. So I would just say start from scratch. I would load settings, say OK. And then it's telling me I've selected no alerts. Do I want to go back? And yes, I do, because now I want to put in my filters. So I would just go to my Windows specific filters. And as Mitch showed you, that we have a whole raft of filters. And why these are showing up for me, because these are a lot of the ones that I'm using constantly. So it is sort of defaulting to the ones that I use a lot. So I would just put in $5, say, and then I would say a maximum 50, anything, and then I would go say a minimum volume of 500,000, and now I'll put in my relative volume again. So I want these stocks to be trading somewhat abnormally. I'll put in 3 times, and as Mitch did, you can do a search because the decimal may not be there, and I just have to type in DEC, and there comes the decimal. I know that, so I add that filter. And there it is. And then let's just do 0.95 this time and 1.05. And then I say OK. And then here is where I give it a name. I could call it whatever I want. Again, I would have named it whole number. So let's just call it whole number test. And then I say OK. And you see, it's telling me, see, I've already screwed up. It's telling me I've selected no alerts. So that's the beauty. So now, of course, I have to go, I want to see when the new highs and new lows are met. And now those are the filters that I want. You can have many, many different types of filters, but I'm trying to keep this rather simple. And now when I say OK, it'll accept it. And now here's my strategy, which is in essence the same strategy as the one we see up here. But all I really wanted to do for this exercise is just show you that it's very easy to construct the strategies. We have a whole list of alerts, a whole list of filters. It's kind of like a menu, and you just pick the ones you want. You fill in the values that you'd like, and then basically your strategy is constructed. All right, now let's get on to a couple of the strategies that are working for me right now. And I want to bring in the bouncers first. And I'm willing to share this with your subscribers, Mitch. So let me show you what this is doing. So I'll click on the configure. And then I go to summary, which is the English language, telling me English language, what it's doing, what my filters are. And you see, I want stocks between 10 and 300. I want 800,000 shares. I want stocks that have 3 candles in a row down on the 2-minute chart. So at least 3 in a row down. 25 cents down at least in the last 30 minutes. I want stocks that are below the close. So this is going to ensure that all the stocks I say are below the close. This is one I use a lot. This is called our position in range filter, which is the daily range. So I want to see stocks that are in the lower 30% of this range, no more than 30% above the low of the range. So in other words, if a stock is, a range of a stock is $1, I want to see it from 30 cents downwards. So in other words, it's trading towards the low of the range. And then the RSI no more than 30. So again, people know the RSI, that kind of signifies an oversold condition. So you can maybe understand what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to see stocks that are in oversold conditions. 3 candles down, it's down in 30 minutes, below the close, and at the low of the range, and the RSI is this. So that is what this topless window is showing me. Now, I should interject here because if you guys have been following along a little bit, you'll know that this is not an alert window. So this is not the same as getting what happens is I will get some stocks in here, but it's not alerting me that okay, at this price you should be buying it on the bounce. It's alerting me to the situation that I may be able to trade this stock. Okay. Now, generally, this is not how I would usually use alert windows where there is a specific trigger point. You'll see what I mean when we go into this one. But I'm finding that this has been a great little moneymaker for me. And let me just show you the the type of chart that we're looking at. And I shared this with Mitch last Thursday. What would have happened on this alert window, on that top list window, my bouncers, is I would have seen this stock about right here. So you can imagine what happened. The BBG came into that window, I clicked on it, and I saw this. I saw, oh boy, this is really going down. And so I saw it right about right there. And I thought, great, this is something that easily could have a bounce. And I believe on Thursday the market was quite positive and up. And I look at a bounce strategy as probably working best when the market is positive. So I was quite excited to see this, and my trigger, what now again now so this is not an alert trigger, but now I have to start making the decision about, do I want to trade this? And so over practice and time, I've made the decision that when we see this last red candle, and if the next candle beside it starts to turn green, I will take this trade just over the top of this last red candle. And now these are 2 minute, this is a 2 minute candle, or a 2 minute chart. So you can see that what happened here, I was able to take this trade about right there, which is, I think it was about 20, around 22.40. And you can see, again, a 2 minute chart, in about 15 minutes, it went up to almost $23. So, a 60-cent rise on a $22 stock in 15 minutes, a great return. Now, I'm not saying every single bounce is going to look like that. I mean, it'd be fantastic if it did, but this is exactly the sort of pattern that I want to see when I click on it. Now, had this next candle, had I been watching when I was watching this, if the next candle had been red and it continued down, well, of course, I wouldn't. It's not necessarily a broken trade at that time, but I would then start watching it because the more this goes down, the better it can bounce. And but my basic trigger would be this. Now, I will also use a 5 minute chart. If I want to be a little more conservative, I may do this same type of trade on a 5 minute chart. The problem is, of course, is that when I use this, I can put my stop fairly close to wherever I got in. And you can see that the low here was 22.35, and I believe I got in at about 22.40. So in theory, I could have had like a 5 cent stop. And so something going up 60 cents on a 5 cent stop, that's a 12 to 1 rate of return. As I say, it's not necessarily going to be all looking like this one, but let me show you one that I actually did today so that you can see that this again is what I'm looking for. And let me just put my charting program in. And Len was the same sort of thing. Not quite as dramatic as BBG was, but this is a trade that I took today. And you could see that at this point the stock was moving down, and it probably got into that window right about here. So I really was watching Len very, very closely. And I just want to move this over a little bit to show you something, because I was watching Len, and I know Len is a home builder, and so I was watching it right about here, and it put in a little green candle, again on the 2 minute chart, a little green candle. And so yes, I was thinking I would love to get into it right about here at the 40.30. But I was also watching on my sector list, I was also watching the home builders, HXB. And I noticed very quickly when this started happening, that the home builders was moving up here. So that means that the home builders, for whatever reason, was starting to climb a little bit. So I had a lot of confidence then. I looked at this and I said, okay, the home builders are moving up. This is a home builder. I will take this trade. I had another fairly tight stop, and it again 2 minute chart, and it went up very nicely up to 40.60 from I think about 40. I probably took it around 40.26. And I actually sold half of this right there. And then I waited, it came up here, and I sold the balance about right in this area here. And yes, it did go back up again, but these are the sort of plays that can be found in using that bounce strategy. And that's why I'm using it a lot right now, especially when the market's still relatively strong, and so the bouncers are starting to work. Now, this will be kind of the fun one, I think, because this is the strategy that I use a lot. And you can see I've called it the custom crossing above resistance. Now, here I'm going to introduce a tool, an add-on tool that we have in Trade Ideas called the Oddsmaker. And the Oddsmaker, in essence, is a back tester. So what you can do is you can think of a strategy. Now, let's for fun look at this one over here. Now, you might, this is the basic highs and lows. So you might think, well, maybe a good strategy would be for me to buy stocks when they, in the power hour, in the last hour of the day, when they're starting to make new highs. Maybe that would be a good strategy. Maybe I'd like to see over the last 30 days, every time that happened, and do a test on it to see whether or not I would have made money. So that's in essence what the odds maker can do for you. It can actually take a strategy that you think might work, and then you can see whether or not in fact it does work. And I actually use the odds maker to keep me out a lot of strategies that I thought could work. But let me just show you let me show you why I love this strategy. And I'm going to run the odds maker, and it's just a routine right within the program. And I go run odds maker, and I'll go back to this screen later. And I'm going to go, this is a long situation, and you see how quickly this is running through everything. And this now is telling me on this particular strategy, if you take in every single alert, what would have happened. So before I look at this, I just want to tell you that I put a starting equity of 25,000. I believe that most people in the States, I'm actually in Canada, but most people in the States need 25,000 to be a pattern day trader. So I put that in there. And you can see that, there were 131 trades over the last 30 days for this strategy. And almost 3/4 of them were winners. I mean, that to me is a tremendous, obviously a tremendous win rate. And over the course of the month, it would have returned 32% and projected annually 822%. Obviously, at this point, a very nice strategy. And you can also see what this is telling me, because what I've done here is I've assigned $10,000 for every trade I take. I want to assign $10,000 to it. So what this is telling me here in the buying power is that at any one time during the month, I had the maximum. I had nine trades open at the same time. So my buying power in order for me to take every single one of these, I would have needed $90,000, which is fine because most of you, I'm sure, will have at least 4-to-1 margin power. Now, what this means, first of all, when I look at a chart, when I test a strategy and I see a chart like this, I immediately fall in love with it, because the first thing you should notice that this red line, the red little dotted line here is the $25,000 equity line that you start with. Never once did it dip down below, never once. So that means that right from the get-go, the trades were working. And they were working at a steep rate. What we like to see is a nice 45-degree angle up, and this was maybe 60 degrees, and kept accelerating and accelerating and accelerating. Topped off a little bit at the top here as the market. Remember, this is a long strategy, so as the market maybe was topping off a little bit, maybe dipped a bit, but now you can see it's starting to pick up again. So what does this line mean? This line is the equity line that I'll call it the unreal equity line. This does not take into account the fact that we all have to pay commissions, all right, and the fact that there could be some slippage involved. And if you don't know what slippage is, I will explain it. So this line right underneath here is the commission equity line. So in other words, you take this line and you subtract what you have to pay for commissions out. And my commission structure is about $2. But if yours was 5, you would just type 5, and this would automatically adjust downwards. This slippage is what I consider one of the more important aspects of the backtester, because most backtesters that I know of don't include slippage. And you can see what's happened. Slippage has really. I've seen some tests where all this looks really good, but then when you factor in the slippage, you see the line moving down. So what slippage is, and you'll see that I have a nickel, 5 cents. What slippage is this? Let's say you get the alert and it's $10, And so you want to take the trade at $10 and you put it into and you madly put it into your brokerage platform. But by the time you get it all executed, the stock is 10.05. So basically, you've kind of slipped badly 5 cents. You didn't get it at the optimum price. So you slipped 5 cents on that side. Now again, you'll see, I'll go back to one of the previous screens. You'll see how you can put this, you can tell the strategy, I would like to hold it, say, for 60 minutes or get out after I've made $1. And so let's say that your exit strategy has been, or exit price has been met, and that is, say, $10.60. Again, you try to sell it at 10.60 and you can't. You sell it at 10.55. So that again, you've slipped on the other side a nickel. So this takes into account some slippage that might occur. Now, you could get lucky, of course. You might get it at $10, and in fact, maybe it dips a bit by the time when you see the alert, and then by the time you go to your platform and you enter the trade, maybe it dips a bit, and so you actually, your slippage factor is non-existent. But we like to put a slippage factor in because that, in my opinion, is real world. Now, let me just show you in the run again section. Here is where you can actually set. Now, you might wonder, well, why did I put 6:30? Okay, first of all, this is West Coast time. I'm on the West Coast, so just think 9:35 and 11 o'clock. So this strategy has been optimized to work the best between 6:35 and 8 in the morning. So basically the first hour and a half of the day. And we have found that the best hold is 60 minutes for the strategy. And I will close the strategy if I gain $1.50, or I will stop myself out if I lose 50 cents. All right. So in other words, sort of a 3-to-1. Now, you might ask, well, how did we ever come up with this? And that is sort of the beauty of the Oddsmaker. If you subscribe, if you take the Oddsmaker, and the Oddsmaker, it's a one-time charge of $1,100, and I know it might sound a little steep, but I think hopefully you'll see the benefit of it. But at any rate, what the company will do is they'll create a couple of strategies for you. You can have too short or too long, whatever you want, a short and a long. And the strategies they create are kind of based on your trading style. So, I mean, some people like to play momentum. Some people like to play maybe consolidation breakouts or just breakouts over certain resistance points. And it also depends on how much buying power you have. So what they do is once they have your information, they will construct a strategy for you. Now, I didn't tell you what this strategy was exactly. I mean, it just says crossing above resistance. But you can see right here that there are many filters that this strategy is used. And let me just close this down and show you when I do the configure again, and then let this fill up, and then do the summary and expand this just a bit. You could see here that here are well, there are even more. I could scroll down. There are even more filters, but you can see here that the stocks where the 30-minute range is between 0.5% and 6.6%. How in the world could I have ever figured that out? How would I have ever come to know that a 60-minute range has to be at least 78 cents? Well, the answer is, of course, I couldn't. So the sort of the simple answer is that Trade Ideas has what, for lack of a better term, a supercomputer in the background that is crunching the numbers and coming up with all these different types of filters, and this is what it came up with in order to optimize the strategy to get the best possible result for this particular strategy. And it also came up with the fact that we wanted to see the strategy start at 5 minutes after the open and up to 8 o'clock or 11 o'clock Eastern time. So again, and I just want to show you how quickly it does all this, because I mean, this is running through many permutations and combinations, and it just instantly loads the results and tells you whether or not the strategy is good or not. Now, unfortunately, I'd love to be able to tell you that once you have a strategy, it'll work forever. But you can tell right here that maybe this was in fact going to start to move down, and because this is a long strategy, maybe it wasn't going to work as well if the market started trending down. And you always have to deal with that, because your strategy will work best, I suppose, if you've got a long strategy, when the market is relatively good, at least neutral, but not trending down. So if it starts not to work, then basically then you sort of maybe put it on the shelf for a while and you haul out one of your short strategies and you see how they're working. Because what I do is I take my strategies and I just do what you see me do or the run again every day just to test them, just to see how they're doing. And if they're not working well, then again, I don't throw it out. I don't delete it forever. I'll just sort of set it aside, and I have other strategies that I use. So that is a very brief. I also just want to show you one thing. You see the calendar here, and this is a beautiful presentation of what has happened over the course of the 30 days that it has checked it. And you can see by the dark color, that was the best day, and the slightly less green is it starts to be not as great as this particular color. You can see here if it's red, that means that particular day lost. But it's a great at a glance to tell you how the strategy is working. And again, you can take a look at this and say, wow, at the beginning this was really working well, and then maybe starting to tail off a bit, but now maybe it's picking up again. So it's a great way to gauge how well your strategies are working. And as I say, I basically this I would call my bread and butter strategy that I use all day long. I use my bouncers and I use this one, and that's it. I try to keep it really, really simple. Well, that's it for the webinar. I will hopefully you got something out of. I'm sure you got something out of this, and perhaps Mitch would have me back, and we could do a question and answer session. Hopefully, maybe we get the Novia set up a little bit better so that I can share the screen with you. But thank you for your patience. I'm really sorry that we couldn't do this live, but I'm glad to have shared something with you. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that you can funnel them through Mitch. He has Trade Ideas email address, and he can funnel them to us. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.